the end of this, we will have real observations about what works better than other options in terms of at-home treatment. And we will have staffs in place ready to train others on how to do that. I would urge you all to pay attention to this as it comes out, and the next step will be to lobby governments to implement what we learned.
Is the federal government funding this?
They are. The federal government is funding this. Thank you. And it is the only major thing they're funding right now, but I absolutely applaud them funding it. And we can do this. Crisis centers, also sometimes called urgent care centers. We talked earlier about the case where a policeman is called and the ambulance is called. There are a lot of individuals, homeless individuals as well as the rest of us, who fall in this funny middle category. They haven't broken a law. They don't need to go to jail. There's no benefit of taking them to jail. And their case may or may not require medical treatment. It's hard to tell. At the moment they contact the police officers, they're a mess. But if the police officer takes them to the hospital, the police officer has to wait there until the hospital makes a decision on the psychiatric competency of that individual. That can wipe out the rest of a police shift. It can often be the same case for the ambulance driver. So the idea of a crisis center, urgent care center, is that it's some alternative to hospital, some place people could be taken. They have professional medical care, as well as professional psychiatric care. They have detox services available. If they were just a little too drunk and were fine and reasonable 2 hours later, they could walk out if they chose. If they needed more services and wanted to avail themselves of the services there, they could get them. But the police and ambulance drivers can leave once they've properly checked the person in, dramatically reducing the local tax burden, and ideally providing better services for the individual. This is an idea that's being looked at really hard by the province right now, although there's nothing that's been opened. And I think, like so many ideas, this is one that depends on implementation. In other words, if you're locked into the crisis care center, it's not the same thing as if it's really a place that offers help. We can do this, walk-in detox. We talked earlier about how many phone calls it takes to get into detox. What if you could walk in detox whenever you're ready? I guarantee you, every addict I see out there has an hour every day when they're ready to quit. But if they have to make a phone call back the next day, they wound up going back to using. What if on that hour they're ready, they could walk in through an open door to a detox center? What if they could dial a phone call and have someone pick them up and take them in when they're ready? And what if huge focus of the detox center was not only detox, but connecting to the housing? So even if they fail at detox, and many do, at least they go into housing where they can start to get more comfortable, safer, and have a better chance of connecting with treatment down the road. We can do this. We can fund recovery houses. Recovery houses are controversial. There's quite a few of them across the suburbs in the Fraser Valley. They're private institutions where addicts go and live for 3, 6, 9 months, a year in a sort of therapeutic community and try to get clean. There is an issue with them when they deteriorate, but if we as a government were starting to license, train, and inspect them, possibly to top up the welfare funding in exchange for that inspection, we might make a lot of progress with them. Also, an awful lot of them are 12-step based and might make ideal faith-based projects. And we can do this, supported employment. Supported employment is a program that exists but is very lightly funded at the federal level. It is real work, not training or handicap workshops. It applies to people who have long-term disabilities as well as people who are in recovery. They work in an integrated setting, the same workplace we do, but they would have a counselor they can meet with on a regular basis. They may have some additional services, someone who helps them manage that transition into work. Employers who have supported employees say they benefit hugely, not only from a stable, regular, basic employee, but from all of that kind of interaction with their community. And this is something we know how to do.
Friends.
And finally, we can do this. Many of you know these are the red tents that were put up several years ago in Paris as part of a protest. And I want to be clear again, I'm not proposing we move the homeless into tents. But as a way to make an issue, it definitely polarized street homelessness in Paris for several years. It was not successful. In the end, they were all moved out with tear gas. But, there is a major event coming to Vancouver. There are people who are interested in drawing attention to it. What if we were to start talking about making housing a right? The United Nations says housing is a right. What if British Columbia City were to do the same? What if the city were to create a bylaw against discharging to no fixed address? So the city says, no, you can't do that. That is against our bylaw here, and we will fine you if you discharge someone to no fixed address. It would put the city in an interesting position because they would then be able to contemplate fining another city who puts someone on a bus to Vancouver or anywhere else saying, we don't want to deal with you as a problem. It would put the city in a position of fining the foster care system, which is a very large feeder of homelessness. It would put the city in a position of fining hospitals, jails. And while I'm not suggesting that that's a solution to homelessness any more than the red tents are, it would be an interesting way to start to talk about the problem. So, thank you for listening. In a few minutes, we're going to go upstairs and talk about what you can do. And I want to kind of issue you a challenge for just a moment. Please don't give money. There are enough people out there making donations, and we should be able to pay this out of the tax savings we're getting from treating homelessness the way we are. I would urge each of you to think about giving a little bit of your time to some project that you devised tonight upstairs on the flip charts. And my promise to you is that if you do that, you'll have the same experience that everyone else I know who gives time to this issue has. You'll feel like you got more than you gave at the end. You're going to feel a huge benefit yourself from having given your time to this, and you will have helped create an environment in which political actors and others can actually solve homelessness in Vancouver. I want to thank the photographers who donated their work. There's a huge list here. This large list is folks who took pictures for the Pivot Project, and if you don't know of it, they have a table outside. I urge you to check it out and to buy the calendar. And I want to thank again the Tyee Museum. Hi.
Hi. Monty, I'd like to discuss one point with you, which is the fight NIMBYism point. I'd like to propose to you that NIMBYism, besides being a rather objectionable term, is actually the Joe citizens' response to the serial incompetence of governments over time, and is not really an unkind response. It's a natural response, and it's a attempt to say to government that you have to do a better job. And instead of making an opposition between the regular citizen who goes to work and might be able to own a house or rent a place, and the person who's homeless, we might try to think of other ways that homeless people could be sheltered, and for that matter, old people and other people who have problems finding housing, and that way might be integrated housing, which means that instead of creating ghettos for old people, homeless people, and so on, you just made every new housing development in the city with a component of social housing within it.
Well, I think we agree, and maybe it's a poor choice of terms on my part, but the problem, I completely agree with integrating housing. And the goal here is to actually end homelessness, not to shelter them indefinitely. And the same thing with seniors and other cases like this, and to find ways to integrate them back into neighborhoods. What has tended to happen in Vancouver and other places in the province is that as soon as a municipality or the province proposes some kind of supportive housing, a group emerges specifically to oppose it and point out all the problems with it. I would like to see a more healthy debate at the community level, at the neighborhood level, saying, okay, here's the things we think we can do, here's the things we think we can't do, and maybe have two groups at the local level discussing this, rather than what happens again and again is, I cover city council meetings, and there's always a lineup of people to speak against these projects. There's very few, anyone from the neighborhood who comes forward and says, yeah, I have a father who is an alcoholic, I have a brother who is an addict, I have a sister who is mentally ill. We come from this neighborhood and we would like to have support services.